The pen hovers 6 inches above the signature line. Zara watches from the corner of the conference room, close enough to see everything, far enough to disappear. Her mother is 3 rooms away, wiping down marble countertops that cost more than their yearly rent. The vacuum hums through walls thick enough to swallow sound. But Zara isn't listening to the vacuum. She's listening to the translator read Clause 4 in Arabic. His voice carries confidence, perfect pronunciation, flawless rhythm, the kind of fluency that makes wealthy men nod and sign away fortunes. Something is wrong. The phrase sits in her chest like broken glass. Alaq ya'udu ila. 5 words that shouldn't exist together engulf legal documents. She knows this the way you know when someone mispronounces your name. It sounds right until it doesn't. Sheikh Rashid Al-Tamir sits at the head of the table, his white thobe pressed sharp enough to cut. He's built an empire on oil routes and shipping lanes that connect 3 continents. First, though, before you share this story with someone who needs to hear it, take a moment. Hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will make you question everything you think you know about power. The man across from the Sheikh, Preston Crawford, sleek gray suit, Harvard-class ring-catching light, leans forward. Your Excellency, this represents the safest $250 million investment you'll ever make. Our legal team has verified every word against Gulf commercial standards. $250 million. Zara's sneakers are from Goodwill. Her jacket has someone else's name stitched inside the collar. She exists in a space between the help and the furniture. Preston's colleague slides another document forward. The Arabic translation has been certified by 3 independent firms. No discrepancies. Except there is one. Zara's hands go cold. Her father's voice surfaces from memory. Professor Elijah Al-Karim, dead 7 years now, his lessons alive in her bones. Language carries fingerprints, baby girl. Learn to see them. The Sheikh reaches for his pen again. Zara's throat tightens. Because once he signs, the money moves. And the clause she just heard? It doesn't transfer ownership. It steals it. What would you do if you saw something no one else could see? But speaking up meant risking everything? Sheikh Rashid built his fortune on patience. He doesn't move fast, doesn't chase trends. His advisors call him the man who waits until everyone else is wrong. 53 years old, silver threading through his beard, eyes that calculate risk before most people finish reading. Today, his team says this deal is bulletproof. The conference room smells like leather and filtered air. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame Manhattan like a painting, 62 floors above the noise, above the chaos, above the people who clean these windows from scaffolding that sways in the wind. Preston Crawford has the kind of face that belongs on money, symmetrical, trustworthy. His firm, Crawford and Associates, manages portfolios for sovereign wealth funds, tech billionaires, families whose names appear on museum wings. Your Excellency, Preston says, his voice smooth as aged whiskey, this isn't just growth. This is strategic positioning in markets that will define the next decade. 3 lawyers flank him, 2 financial analysts with color-coded folders, 1 interpreter who studied at the American University of Beirut. Everything looks right. The contracts bear official seals, gold embossed, Arabic calligraphy that curves like water. The projections align with market trends the Sheikh's own analysts verified last week. The legal framework references Gulf commercial law with precision that feels almost surgical. Preston's interpreter lifts the document, reads Clause 7 in Arabic. His accent is flawless, Lebanese dialect with formal legal phrasing. The kind of Arabic that opens doors in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Riyadh. The Sheikh's head of security stands near the door. 6'3", former Jordanian Special Forces, trained to spot threats before they materialize. He's not looking at Zara. Nobody is. She stands against the far wall, hands folded, breathing shallow. Her mother taught her this posture young, how to occupy space without claiming it, how to be present without being seen. Preston slides the final signature page forward. Once you authorize the wire transfer, the assets begin accruing value immediately. Our projections show a 22% return within 18 months. The Sheikh studies the numbers. His fingers drum once against the mahogany table, a habit his business partners know means he's already decided. He picks up the pen. Zara's pulse hammers against her wrist. The interpreter begins reading Clause 4, and that's when Zara hears it, the linguistic trap buried inside perfect grammar. Zara's father used to say language is architecture, not decoration, not style, structure, the skeleton beneath the skin. Professor Elijah Al-Karim taught classical Arabic linguistics at a university that doesn't exist anymore. Before the war, before displacement turned scholars into grocery clerks, before a heart attack in a Brooklyn subway station made him another body people stepped around because New York teaches you not to look down. He died when Zara was 12, but his lessons didn't. She remembers sitting in their studio apartment in Queens, peeling wallpaper, radiator clanking, library books stacked like defensive walls. Her father would open a legal document, point to a single word, and spend an hour explaining how one misplaced verb could transfer nations. This phrase, he'd say, tracing Arabic script with fingers that still remembered lecturing to packed halls, tells you who wrote it. North African construction. Gulf speakers would never use this form for asset reversion. Zara was 9 then. She understood maybe half of what he taught. She remembers all of it now. Her mother, Amara, kept them alive after he died. Cleaned penthouses, scrubbed hotel suites, wiped fingerprints from glass tables in buildings where monthly maintenance fees exceeded their yearly income. Zara followed her sometimes, homeschooled herself using borrowed textbooks and free online courses, read financial newspapers left in recycling bins, learned that invisibility wasn't weakness, it was survival. And sometimes, like now, standing in a conference room where men negotiate fortunes, it was advantage. The interpreter reads Clause 4 again. His pronunciation is perfect. His pacing is confident. He sounds exactly like someone who spent years studying Arabic. But the construction is impossible. العقد يعود إلى المستثمرين الأساسيين. The contract returns to the primary investors. Except Gulf legal Arabic never uses yaoud for asset reversion. That's North African colloquial phrasing incorrectly elevated to legal status. Worse, the clause creates what her father called a recursive subordination structure. Condition triggers, condition triggers, condition. Each step looks routine. Each step is legal alone. Together, they form a mechanism of theft. The assets won't transfer to Sheikh Rashid. They'll route back to Preston's consortium through shell entities that appear legitimate until the money disappears. Zara's breath catches. Her father's voice surfaces again. Language is responsibility, baby girl. If you see the bones and stay silent, you become part of the lie. Preston is smiling. His colleagues mirror his confidence. Even the lawyers look relaxed. Their job complete. Their billable hours justified. The Sheikh's pen touches paper. Zara makes her choice. Her voice cuts through the room like a blade through silk. Hada Muzayef. This is fake. 3 words in formal Arabic. Clear, precise, surgical. The pen stops. Every head turns. Preston's smile freezes on his face. Not fading immediately, but holding there like something taxidermied. His brain processing. Someone spoke. The someone is a teenager. The teenager is wearing Goodwill sneakers. Then he laughs. Soft, dismissive. The sound you make when a child interrupts adult business. Who is this? He asks, looking past Zara to the security guard, to the Sheikh's assistant, to anyone who might explain why the help is speaking. Zara doesn't lower her eyes. She steps forward from the wall into the light. Her sneakers make no sound on imported tile. Her voice doesn't rise, doesn't need to. That clause voids the contract, she says in English first, then repeats it in Arabic, breaking down the grammar, the regional construction error, the fraud hidden inside elegant phrasing. The translators stiffen. One starts to speak, stops. His face cycles through confusion, then concern, then something that looks like fear. Zara walks to the table, points to paragraph 4. This uses a North African legal construction that doesn't exist in Gulf commercial law, she continues. The phrase yarud ila is colloquial. Gulf legal documents use yuhawwal ila for transfers and yurad ila for reversions. Never this hybrid. Preston's colleague tries to interrupt. This is Clause 4.2 triggers Clause 7.3, Zara continues, her finger tracing the text. which activates Clause 9.1. Each step looks routine. Each step is legal alone. Together, they reroute ownership back to your shell entities once the funds clear. Silence drops like a guillotine. The Sheikh stands, slowly, the kind of movement that makes everyone else go still. He looks at his translators, then his lawyers, then Preston, whose smile has disappeared completely. Then, for the first time since Zara entered this building hours ago, Sheikh Rashid looks directly at her. He speaks in Arabic, Gulf dialect, formal, command wrapped in courtesy. Shirley, explain to me. Zara answers without hesitation. She breaks down the linguistic fingerprints. How AI language models trained on incomplete data sets produce grammatically correct text that sounds authentic until you check the roots. How this document uses 3 different regional dialects in sections that should be uniform. The lead translator tries to defend himself. Your Excellency, the grammar was verified. Correct grammar isn't authentic usage, Zara says quietly. This document was generated by machines that don't understand context. They assume no one would check the linguistic precedent. They assume translations would be accepted at face value. She pulls out her phone. Cracked screen, bought used 2 years ago. Opens a legal database her father bookmarked before he died. Shows the Sheikh authentic Gulf commercial clause structures. The difference is microscopic, but it's there. Sheikh Rashid studies the screen, then the document, then Zahra with eyes that have calculated billions in risk. When he speaks, his voice carries weight that makes even Preston go silent. Delay the transfer. What happens next takes 15 minutes. 15 minutes to dismantle an empire built on assumptions. Sheikh Rashid dismisses his translators with a gesture that's somehow both polite and final. He instructs his security chief to seal the room. No one leaves until this resolves. He asks Preston to remain seated. Then he turns back to Zara. Tests her, not gently. He asks her to identify the source region of 3 different phrases in the contract. She answers each time. North African, Levantine, machine-generated with no authentic origin. He asks why the verb tense in clause 7.3 is legally impossible. She breaks down the temporal structure, how the verb implies a future action that's already been legally completed, a logical contradiction that would void the clause in any Gulf court. He asks where she learned this level of Arabic. My father, Zara says, he was a professor of classical linguistics before the war. Sheikh Rashid nods once. Like that explains everything. He turns to his head of legal. Contact Yasmin Al-Madani in Dubai. I want a forensic linguistic analysis of every page within 24 hours. To his security chief. Contact the FBI Financial Crimes Division. Report an attempted fraud exceeding 200 million. To Preston, whose face has gone the color of old newspaper. You'll remain here until federal investigators arrive. Preston tries to stand. Security moves before he's halfway up. This is a misunderstanding, Preston says, panic masquerading as indignation. A linguistic interpretation doesn't constitute, it constitutes sufficient cause to investigate. Sheikh Rashid cuts him off. And if this young woman is correct, and I believe she is, it constitutes fraud on a scale that will occupy prosecutors for years. He looks at Zara again. You just saved me $250 million. Zara feels the room's attention shift to her like gravity reversing. The lawyers staring, the security personnel recalculating, the translators looking at her like she materialized from nothing. She starts. You saw what we missed because we believed expertise was enough, Sheikh Rashid interrupts, because we assumed institutional validation meant truth. He hands her his business card, heavy stock, gold lettering, a phone number that probably costs money to call. When the FBI finishes their investigation, I will contact you. Preston's colleague is on his phone now, whispering urgently, probably calling lawyers who bill 4 figures per hour. The Sheikh's assistant is already making calls, and Zara stands there, 19 years old, thrift store clothes, cracked phone, her mother still cleaning marble countertops 3 rooms away. She just stopped a $250 million crime with 6 words spoken in flawless Arabic. But what she doesn't know yet, what none of them know, is that this fraud goes deeper than one failed investment. And the people who built it are about to learn her name. The FBI agent arrives in 43 minutes. Special Agent Kimberly Okoya, walks into the conference room like she owns it. Dark suit, badge clipped to her belt. Eyes that scan faces the way bomb technicians scan packages. Preston is still seated. His lawyers arrived 20 minutes ago. 3 of them, briefcases open, already building defense strategies in whispered conference. Agent Okoye ignores them. She walks straight to Zara. "You're the one who flagged the linguistic fraud?" Not a question, a confirmation. Zara nods. "I need you to walk me through it. Every detail, every phrase that triggered your alarm." For the next hour, Zara breaks down the document line by line, shows Agent Okoye the regional construction errors, the recursive subordination structure, the AI-generated fingerprints that professionals missed because they looked for obvious fraud instead of sophisticated deception. Agent Okoye records everything, takes photos of Zara's phone screen showing authentic legal comparisons, asks questions that prove she understands exactly how deep this goes. "This isn't their first attempt," Agent Okoye says finally. "Not to Zahra, to Sheikh Rashid. We've been tracking a pattern of high-value financial fraud targeting international investors. Sovereign wealth funds, pension systems, charities, same methodology, impeccable documentation, institutional appearances, linguistic camouflage." Preston's lead lawyer stands. "My client hasn't been charged. Your client is part of a network that's stolen approximately $8.3 billion over 6 years." Agent Okoye interrupts. "Sit down." The lawyer sits. Sheikh Rashid leans forward. "How many victims?" 47 confirmed, probably more who haven't realized yet. Agent Okoye turns to Preston. "You want to cooperate now, or you want to wait until we connect every shell company, every wire transfer, every fabricated document?" Preston's face drains of color. His lawyer whispers urgently in his ear. Preston closes his eyes, opens them, looks at Agent Okoye with the expression of someone who just realized the game is over. "I'll cooperate." And that's when Zara learns just how many people were listening when she spoke. The investigation moves like wildfire through dry grass. Preston talks for 6 hours straight, names names, traces money routes, describes an operation refined over years, recruiting translators who were competent but not expert, targeting clients who were wealthy but time-pressured, exploiting trust that came from institutional appearances. The architects designed it like a machine. Step 1. Identify high-value targets through financial intelligence networks. Step 2. Research their investment patterns, cultural background, language preferences. Step 3. Generate contracts using AI models trained on legal databases, grammatically perfect, institutionally formatted, nearly impossible to distinguish from authentic documents. Step 4. Embed reversion clauses in linguistic blind spots. The system assumed poverty meant ignorance, assumed a maid's daughter standing quietly in a Manhattan conference room couldn't possibly have the training to see what experts missed. They were wrong. Within 72 hours, federal investigators coordinate with Interpol. Financial regulators in London, Dubai, Singapore, New York begin tracing the network. Arrests happen in 3 countries within the first week. The fraud ring collapses like dominoes. A hedge fund manager in London, 2 banking executives in Singapore, a legal consultant in Dubai who specialized in Gulf commercial law, all connected through shell companies registered in jurisdictions that ask no questions. The stolen money, what can be recovered, gets frozen in accounts spanning 14 countries. Victims start coming forward. A Kuwaiti pension fund that lost $200 million, a Saudi charity that transferred assets into accounts that evaporated overnight, a Qatari sovereign wealth manager who thought he was investing in renewable energy infrastructure. All of them fooled by the same method. Perfect documents. Institutional credibility. Linguistic fraud hidden in elegance. Agent Okoye keeps Zara's identity confidential at Sheikh Rashid's request. The press reports that an internal audit flagged discrepancies. Technically true, incomplete. The real story stays quiet. A 19-year-old with cracked sneakers and her father's education saw what billion-dollar institutions missed. But in rooms where decisions get made, her name starts circulating. And 3 weeks later, Zara receives a phone call that changes everything. Sheikh Rashid's office overlooks Central Park from the 58th floor. Zara arrives wearing the same jacket, carrying the same phone, feeling the same tension that comes from entering spaces designed for people who aren't her. But this time, she doesn't wait. The Sheikh's assistant escorts her directly to his private office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that costs more than cars, art that probably has its own insurance policy. Sheikh Rashid doesn't make her sit across a desk like a subordinate. He gestures to a seating area near the windows, comfortable chairs, a low table with mint tea already prepared. He pours the tea himself. The FBI recovered approximately $6.2 billion, he says without preamble. The remaining $2 billion is likely unrecoverable. Spent, laundered, gone. Zara holds the teacup, feels its warmth against her palms. 47 victims confirmed, Sheikh Rashid continues. Your intervention stopped me from becoming number 48. More importantly, your testimony helped investigators dismantle the entire operation. He slides an envelope across the table. I've established a scholarship in your name at Columbia University. Full tuition, housing, stipend. You can study linguistics, law, finance, whatever you choose. Zara's throat tightens. I also have a position available on my legal advisory team, he adds. Contract review, linguistic audits, training translators on regional variations. The salary would be competitive. He pauses. But I'm offering you a choice. Education first, if you prefer. The position will wait. Zara looks at him. This man who controls billions, who shapes markets, who moves through the world with the confidence of someone who has never questioned whether he belongs. And he's offering her power. My mother, Zara says quietly. She's still cleaning penthouses. Sheikh Rashid smiles. Not anymore. I've arranged a position managing my household staff. Salary, benefits, respect, if she wants it. Her mother takes the job. Stops scrubbing floors the next week. Zara accepts the scholarship, but she doesn't disappear into university life. Because 2 years later, a man in a federal prison asks to speak with investigators. And he has one thing to say. The interrogation room smells like disinfectant and regret. Marcus Ellington, one of the fraud architects serving 18 years at a federal facility in Pennsylvania, sits across from Agent Okoye. His lawyer is present but silent. I want to make a statement, Marcus says. For the record, Agent Okoye starts the recording. Marcus leans forward, hands folded on the metal table, eyes carrying the weight of someone who's had 2 years to think about where everything went wrong. We built that system over 6 years, he begins. Recruited linguists, financial analysts, software engineers, spent millions developing AI models that could generate legal documents in 14 languages, tested them against expert review, refined them until the error rate was less than 0.03%. He pauses. We targeted 47 high-value investments, successfully executed 46, lost approximately $8.3 billion in total. The operation was perfect. Agent Okoye waits. We accounted for everything, Marcus continues. Regulatory oversight, forensic audits, financial intelligence networks. We built redundancy into every step, covered every angle. His voice drops. But we didn't account for the maid's daughter. The recording captures the silence that follows. We assumed invisibility meant ignorance, Marcus says finally. We assumed someone standing against the wall in thrift store clothes couldn't possibly have the training to see what we'd hidden. We assumed poverty was a guarantee of irrelevance. He looks directly at Agent Okoye. That assumption cost us everything. The statement gets filed in the case record, becomes part of the official investigation documentation, eventually gets referenced in a Justice Department report on sophisticated financial fraud. But it never mentions Zara's name. She's finishing her second year at Columbia now, majoring in linguistics with a focus on computational forensics, working part-time for Sheikh Rashid's legal team, reviewing contracts, training analysts, building algorithms that detect AI-generated legal text. Her mother manages a staff of 12, lives in an apartment with windows that face actual sunlight. And Zara, who once stood invisible in a conference room while men negotiated fortunes, now sits at tables where her voice carries weight. But the question that haunts her isn't about what she gained. It's about how many other invisible people see things no one else notices. And stay silent. 3 years after the conference room, Zara stands in front of a congressional committee investigating financial fraud prevention. She's 22 now, Columbia graduate, published researcher, consultant for 3 federal agencies. The committee chair, Senator Patricia Monroe, asks her to explain how linguistic fraud operates at scale. Zara doesn't use notes. The system assumes institutional validation equals truth, she begins. It assumes professional translators catch all errors. It assumes expertise is enough, but expertise can be weaponized. Credentials can be manufactured. Trust can be engineered. She clicks to the next slide, shows examples of AI-generated legal text that passed expert review in 12 countries. The difference between authentic and fraudulent documents isn't obvious, Zara continues. It's microscopic. A verb tense that's grammatically correct, but contextually impossible. A regional construction that sounds right, but doesn't exist in formal legal frameworks. Fingerprints invisible to anyone who wasn't trained to see them. Senator Monroe leans forward. And how do we prevent this at scale? You can't, Zara says. Not completely. But you can build systems that recognize what AI models miss. You can train analysts to check linguistic roots, not just surface accuracy. You can create databases of authentic legal constructions across regions and languages. She pauses. And you can stop assuming that the people who see things are always the ones sitting at the table. The testimony gets covered by major news networks. Financial journals write about the linguistic fraud epidemic. Universities start developing courses on computational forensics and cultural linguistics. But the story that matters most never makes headlines. It's the story of a girl who grew up invisible, who learned language as inheritance, who stood in a room full of experts and spoke truth when silence would have been easier. Years later, Marcus Ellington's statement gets quoted in a documentary about financial crime. "We didn't know the maid's daughter was listening," he said, and that's the lesson that outlasts everything else. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it stands quietly against the wall, watching, learning, waiting for the moment when 6 words in perfect Arabic can stop a $250 million lie. Because the most dangerous people aren't the ones who demand attention. They're the ones no one thought to notice until it's too late.